Hey guys, it's Aiden and
Lacey
and
Penny
from Rain City, and today our mom will be showing you guys how to do generic modifications, such as add length or reduce length on the skirt and bodice, and also blend sizes. Now let's get sewing.
Goodbye.
Okay, now let's say that the size you made fits really well, but the skirt, you want it to be shorter. It's just for whatever reason, the style you prefer, you want it to be a little bit shorter or a lot shorter. It's a really easy fix, really easy mod to do. Just take your ruler and measure from the bottom curve however many inches shorter you want. So you could be like, well, you know, I want a really short skirt. Maybe I want more of a vintage look. So say you want to take 7 inches off. So I'd mark 7, and then I'd move it over and mark 7 again. And I would just keep doing this until I have marked it all the way around, following along with this curve. Just like that. Until I get to this end right here. And then I would just basically connect the dots. So I would retrace this curved line here. And that's where I would cut my skirt. And I would repeat that on the back skirt piece. So I would take my ruler again. 7 inches is where we were going. So I'd mark the 7 and the 7 and do that all the way around. And that would give me a shorter skirt. Let's say that your size fits great. If it's great in the bodice, everything works good, but you want a longer skirt because you want more of maybe a princess look, like you want a gown look. So a really easy fix for that would be first figure how many inches you need to add to your skirt, and then get some white paper or craft paper. And you would lay it out just like this. And I would tape this here, which I'm not going to do right now. And then, so let's say I want to add 5 inches. So pretend that this is taped down. You would go, and from the bottom of the hemline, you would start to mark out 5 inches. Hold that down with that. So 5 inches all the way around. And then you're going to want to trace that line again. The more marks you make, the more precise your line is going to be. And then once you have those lines traced, you're just going to want to trace this side, this fold line area again, just like that, and then cut it out. Okay, so there we have our longer skirt. In this next scenario, we're going to apply changes to the bodice and to the skirt. So in this scenario, the measurement chart says that for a size 4, that child is 41 inches tall. Well, I've measured my child and she is only 40 inches tall. So I need to take 1 inch off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that number, 1 inch, and I'm going to divide it by 2 because I have 2 pieces. I have a top section and a bottom section, and I want to apply that change evenly. So I'm going to start with the bodice, and I'm just going to take a 1/2 inch off, which is easy to do on the back piece here because it's squared. It doesn't taper. So you can actually just take your ruler and mark off a 1/2 inch, just like that, and then fold it over, and you're fine. But you can't do that with the front piece if you're doing something that is not squared like the back piece was. So what you're going to want to do is just find an area that is squared, which would be not this area and not that area, somewhere between here and here. And I'm just going to square a line off from the side there. And then I'm going to cut that. And I'm going to move this up a 1/2 inch. So let's mark that off. 1/2 inch. There. And now to check, we lay them on top, and yes, those side seams are the same length. So that takes care of the bodice, but what do we do about the skirt here? So you always want to make this adjustment at the hem. If you make it here where it connects to the bodice, you're actually going to make this smaller, which really probably doesn't matter that much because this skirt is gathered. But if your skirt wasn't gathered, if it was made to fit perfectly with that width of the bodice, you don't want to mess with this, because the more in you go, the smaller that waist will be. So make your adjustment at the hem here. So to make it a 1/2 inch smaller, you just take your ruler and you mark off a 1/2 inch at the bottom of the hem. And you do that all the way around, and then you connect the dots and trace that curved line back in, and then just cut it off. And you repeat that if you have a front skirt also. Okay, so say you have to blend sizes. Say your child is a size 4 in their chest, but they are very tall. We'll say that they're a 6X. So we went ahead and we printed the 4T bodice. We've sewn it up. The 4 fits fine. It's just short. It needs length added to it. So we're going to add some length to it. So for the front bodice here, we found an area where the side seam is parallel to the fold of the bodice. And all we did was we made a line and then we cut it. Okay, so the amount of spread is going to be the difference in height between the 4 and the 6X. So if your child is a 6X, they're 48 1.5 inches tall. The bodice for a size 4 is made for a person who is only 41 inches tall. So we have 48.5 minus 41. That leaves us 7.5. And we want to apply that length evenly between the bodice and the skirt. So we take 7.5 and we divide it by 2, and we get 3 inches and 3/4. So 3.75. So we cut this. And we're just going to put a little extension piece in. And then from the bottom of where we cut, we're going to measure off 3 3/4 inches. And we're going to draw that line straight across and then cut it off. Or you can leave it there and then just tape this piece to it. So whichever you prefer. So I'm going to cut it off, and then I'm just going to bottom this to the piece that I cut off. And then we're going to square this off. And then if you need to square it off there. So there we've added 3 3/4 inches to our front bodice piece. And we have to repeat that process on the back. So on my back piece, it's pretty squared. So what I did was I added a piece of paper to the bottom, and I just added that 3 3/4 inches there. Just like that. And to check to make sure that it's good, we want to make sure that this side seam is the same for the front and the back. So you can just lay those together and line them up, and yeah, that's looking pretty good. So next we want to add 3 3/4 inches to the skirt. And you're always going to want to add this length to the hem. You don't want to add it to where you sew the skirt to the bodice, because if you do, as these lines come in, that area gets smaller, so it's not going to fit your bodice if you do it there. So always add it to the hem. So same situation, you're going to want to take a piece of paper, tape it to the bottom, and add that 3 3/4 inches. Make your dotted line, trace the line, and cut it off.
Generic. Hey guys, it's Aiden and Hey guys, it's Aiden and
Lucy.
from Rain